Hello, welcome back to FordeeTV. I'm your host, Fordee. So today we are working in After Effects, and I'm going to show you how to make some magic, make something disappear, explode, etc. Anyways, let me show you what we're going for. What? The novice disintegration spell from Hoglum School of Magic. What? What? Step 1. Focus on what you want to disintegrate. The cactus. Also step 1. Simply snap your thumb and your middle finger to perform the spell. What? It worked! What if we snap both our fingers to bring it back? Sweet. So we're not going to recreate the whole composition. I'm just going to show you how I exploded myself, which obviously you can apply to the cactus. I'll talk about some of the things you need to consider when you're filming, etc. And let's jump into the project, baby. So over here in the project panel, you'll see I have a few clips loaded. The first one is the footage of myself on the couch, etc. I will talk about that after I load it. Then I have a couple audio files, and those are used to sell the explosion effect. I've got a couple smoke files to further composite, and yeah, so I'm going to take the footage, drop it onto the new composition here, and this new composition right here is the footage all in one piece. The only part that's missing from this that was in the final comp is I did a shot with my GoPro on the gimbal, and I zoomed in to the spell, if you will, on the table so you could see the spell, right? So I'm not going to show you that, but that's just to further sell the shot or make it of more interest, etc. So as I drag my playlist right here, you'll see I plop down on the couch, boom, I see the spell, I'm like, damn, what's that, right? Anyways, with some excitement, I start reading the spell, right? What is needed? First, I need to figure out what I'm going to get rid of, and then all of a sudden I see the cactus, my nemesis. Just kidding, I love that cactus. You never have to water it, and it lives. Anyways, as we keep going, I read the different things I need to do. Basically, use my thumb and my middle finger to snap, and that's all, right? As long as I'm focusing on the object. So I look at the cactus, I snap my fingers, boom, nothing happens. Why? I have someone remove the cactus, but nothing happened because magic isn't real, yo. We're going to make it real, though. So if I keep going after that, I start thinking, what if and of course my reaction, right? What if we snap both fingers? Now, if in the final, it doesn't show a close-up of the spell long enough at the end, but in the bottom it says, danger, don't snap both fingers. Unfortunately, I should have shown that more, but I didn't want to reshoot it because it ended too quickly after that, so the dissolve ends up not showing it long enough, right? But anyway, so at that point, I'm like, it's gone, and now let's do the part where I snap my fingers. So I'm going to come here. I think this is somewhere around here is where I say, what if? Both our fingers. Somewhere maybe right here. What if we... So right here, right? So if I press B on my keyboard with this layer selected and the playhead right here, it's going to select this to be the beginning of my work area. If I come up to composition, say trim comp to work area, boom, now it starts right here. So what if we snap both fingers? Well, we know what happens, right? You disappear. Anyways, over here in the layer palette, what I'm going to do is first I'm going to drag my playhead, find the part where I snap my fingers. Ready, set, boom. So somewhere around here, right, where I snap my fingers, and it shouldn't exactly happen as soon as my fingers touch, right? A little bit after, because sound is traveling pretty quick, faster than your eyes will react. I'm going to press Command D on my keyboard to duplicate the layer, and then on the first layer, I'll press Command begin bracket, then Command end bracket on the second layer. What that does is it trims the layers to start and end on the same point at where the playhead is, right? So on the top layer, I'll press Enter and I will type Explode Me, right? That sounds catchy, right? Should be a movie. Anyway, on the second layer, we're going to press Enter and we're going to call this main footage, right? Next, if we drag our playhead further in this piece of footage, you're going to see, boom, I recorded for quite a bit without anything. And that's because right here, boom, this is our clean plate. So we can have this existing under our footage. And this is the part that when we mask something out and explode it myself in this particular example, then I have this clean piece of couch, right? So what I'm going to do is come over here to main footage in the layers. I'll press Command D to duplicate it. I'll drag main footage below. I'm going to press Enter and we're going to call this clean plate. After I do that, what I want to do is extend this out so it's covering this area. Then I'm, going to right click on clean plate, go to time, and select freeze frame. When I do this, now this is just one frame, right? So if I hide this layer, it doesn't matter where I move the playhead, right? That layer below, the clean plate layer, is just that single frame. So what I'm gonna do is drag it over, and probably actually I don't need to do that, because the whole thing is that frame. But anyways, just for continuity, I like things to line up like that. I'm silly and anal about silly stuff, right? Anyway, what we can do is click on this arrow right here to hide those properties. We'll come back over, and to start this effect, we want to come into the beginning of this, right? The beginning frame right there on this first layer of Explode Me, and we want to mask myself out. So let's click the pen tool. I swear I could talk. Let's click the pen tool up at the top, change the zoom setting from 100 whatever to 200% so it's easier to see. We'll press spacebar on our keyboard. When we do that, it brings up the hand, and then we can move this in our view, right? So I'm going to mask myself out by using the pen tool and clicking, just keep clicking points. It doesn't have to be perfect. And the reason that it doesn't have to be perfect is this effect happens so quickly that the viewer is not going to be able to discern that other pixels other than my body are being used for the effect, right? Now, if you had this effect happen over a longer period of time, right, then maybe it would be more viewable, and at that point, maybe you would go ahead and rotoscope yourself out properly, or you use the pen tool and you create Bezier curves around yourself, and that way the mask would be perfect. But for our particular situation or this particular effect, it does not need to be. Again, I'm pressing spacebar, bring up the hand tool. I can move the footage in the viewport so I can keep working, and I don't have to go up the top and change our tools, etc., right? Working smarter, not harder, baby. Anyways, once I finish this, what I'm going to do is if I show and hide this layer, if I bring this out a bit, you'll see that I've masked myself out, right? And we'll also see that, number one, once I move the playhead, you'll notice that the mask is, I don't move with the mask. So what do we need to do? We need to come to this first frame, right-click on this first layer, and go to Time and Freeze Frame. And why do we want to freeze this frame? Because in the end, when we explode myself out right here, we want me to disappear. And we don't want to animate the mask. Obviously, we could, but we don't need to in this particular situation. So again, I'm going to show myself right here. We'll make sure we're on the proper layer, which will be right there. And the next thing that we want to do is start applying some effects. Let's change the zoom percentage here from 200 to fit. And after we do that, come over to our effects and presets pane, and we will start typing CC scatterize, right? So CC space SC, and boom, it's right there. I'm going to drag this, drop it on the Explode Me layer. And when I do that, you'll notice nothing happened, But if I bump up the scatter right here, you notice that, boom, this is the effect that we are looking for, right? So I'll set it back to 0, and I'm going to create a keyframe on this first frame here where I want myself to explode, which is 4919. Let's drag our playhead over by 1 second to 5019, which is right there, and let's change this to 100%. Now, if we drag our playhead in our view, you'll see that all of a sudden I go snap, and I explode. Super cool, but that's not all that we want, right? One of the things you might notice if I bring my playhead right here is the pixels are a little dull, especially the brighter pixels. So we can come over to our effects and presets, and we can start typing in curves, and let's go ahead and bring up the color correction of curves. When we do that, we drop it in. We can lock in our shadows right here by clicking one point there, and then bump up our lighter colors right here. And to show you on and off, it's just adding a little brightness to these brighter pixels, which I think it makes it more visible to the person who's watching it. And that's definitely something I think that you want, right? Next, let's vary this up a little bit to further sell the effect. We'll come over to Effect and Presets. We'll start typing Turbulent Displace, right? Or we'll start typing TURB. That's good enough, right? Anyways, we'll drag Turbulent Displace in here, and you'll notice at this point, right, what's happening. It is, you see it on my body right here where it just made me like move. It's applying a noise map that then distorts the pixels based on the amount over here, right? And maybe we set this to 25. It doesn't have to be that much, But when you have it set to 25, all it did is apply it to all of it, right? And what we want it to do is move. And we do that by animating the evolution slider here. So let's make sure our keyframes match up over here. On this particular one, if I press U twice, it will bring up the keyframes I have set for the scatter, and now we can line up our keyframes for the turbulent displace with the keyframes of the scatter. So I'll keyframe right here at the first keyframe where scatter is, and then I'll drag over here to the end, to the next keyframe of the scatter, and we are going to put this at 1 full revolution, which is 360 degrees, plus, I don't know, 90 or something. Or maybe 360 is fine, I don't know. But now if we watch this, you'll notice that I don't just explode outward. You see that they're twisting and turning based on the noise map applied by turbulent displace, and that's pretty cool, I think, you know? So it adds a little bit more variation. I think it helps sell the effect a little bit more, but let's do something else. We'll drag the playhead here just so you can see it better, or maybe there. And let's add a vector blur, right? When we add this vector blur, it's going to kind of make some of these particles look cell-ish, right? So if I type in 15, for example, notice what happened. If you're looking at the particles right there, in fact, let me zoom in a bit to make it a little bit more obvious. Look what's happening, right? Turning this on and off. So it's kind of getting to meld together almost like they're cells. Now, if we bump this up, we don't want it too high. I think 15 to 20, something like that should work just fine, right? Now, if I go ahead and scrub through this, boom, it's like my cells are just disintegrating, right? Awesome. But you'll notice it doesn't, nothing happens at a certain point. That's okay. We're going to use opacity to have them die. So maybe if this ends right here, this keyframe at 50 and 19, 50 seconds and 19 frames, let's bring it back maybe by 5 frames, which would be 14. Let's create a keyframe for opacity on this layer. I'm going to select Explode Me, press T on my keyboard, and select a keyframe for opacity, and then let's drag this out. I don't know, so 19 would make it 5 frames, and let's say, let's bring it out to 5105 or something, right? I don't even know how long that is, but it should be fine, huh? I'll go ahead and press 0, and now what's going to happen is you'll see it explodes out, and again, it's happening really quickly, right? So over the course of less than 2 seconds, and then it's just going to disintegrate, right, or fade out right there. So that way the particles are gone, which I think is important. So again, I'm going to drop this or set this to fit so we can see everything better, and drag my playhead just so you can see what's happening, and they disappear. Nice. Well, already that looks cool, right? But in the end, if we composite some real life elements into this, it will make it look even better, right? So I'll click over here on the project. After I do so, you'll notice that we have a couple different smokes. If I double click on this right here, I press spacebar. Well, it started in the middle, but if the playhead goes back to the beginning, boom, it's like a shockwave of smoke, which is what I used, right? And if we take this over here and I drop this into above the Explode Me layer, this is pretty cool. You'll notice, though, that it starts over here. So we need to drag this over, maybe put it right here, and notice that as soon as it starts, well, what do we have to do? We have to change the blend mode, yo. So because we want to remove the black, we're going to set one of these screen modes right here, add light and screen. If you're using video footage right from a camera that shoots in a non-linear color space, then you're going to want to select screen. If it's a linear color space, select add, huh? So we're going to put screen, and now if we look, boom, that looks good. But one of the things that we notice is that this smoke, number one, is not directly over me, right? So if we press P on our keyboard with this layer selected, we can then move this over, right? So that is directly over me. But this creates another problem. First, actually, let's move it just a bit up, just a hair up. So this kind of is lining up better with the footage, etc. But you'll notice, you see these little handles right here. This means that this particular layer is now smaller than our composition, right? Because this space right here, just a little bit, and this space right here won't have that explosion. So if I play this through, notice it stops abruptly right there. So we could do a few things, right? Number one, we can mask this out. Or what we could do is scale it up, right? Which is what I would prefer in this particular situation. So when I scale this up, all I wanted to do is extend outside of this. So when I play this, right, it's still starting from the same spot. It will explode out awesome, right? Now we could do a few things, right? Notice that once it disperses here, it's gone pretty much slightly after our particles disappear, but that's fine, right? Maybe if we don't want this to be so bright, we can change the opacity, right? So I'll select this layer, press T, and change it from 100 to 60 or something like that, right? And maybe now it's a little bit lighter, maybe 75. I don't remember what I set it to in the other one, but this is up to your taste, right? Maybe if it's too bright, that doesn't sell it. But remember, we color corrected everything, or I remember because I did it. Anyway, at the end, after I did all this stuff inside After Effects, I brought it in Final Cut Pro for further color correction and a few extra tweaks, etc. Right? And yeah, if you're going to color correct it, maybe you don't have to drop it as much, because what's really going to seal the deal later is the color correction. Okay, so this is cool, right? Now, this other smoke layer, if I double click on it, let's bring our head back over here, press play. This is different. I didn't use this particular smoke effect for me exploding. I used it for the cactus. But let's if you want to add this too, we can, right? We can come over here, drag this into our layers. I drag this over, and obviously what's the first thing that we need to do? Change the screen mode from normal to screen. Boom. And so here it's coming out here. Let's hide the other smoke layer so it doesn't distract us. And what is the next thing that we have to do? I'm not exploding from over here, right? So how do we bring this over? Well, first thing we probably want to do is rotate it. So if I bring up my rotation and I start to rotate this, right? And if I hold shift, it should, I think it would, well, anyways, the right rotation is 90, so let's just type it. But when we do that, where is the smoke? If we zoom out further, set it to 50%, you'll see the smoke is emanating from this point right here. So what do we have to do? We have to bring up the position. Press P on our keyboard. We're going to drag this up. Whoops, that's the X, so that's not what we want. We want to drag up the Y. And now, once we drag this up, and of course, we could just click in here and drag. So maybe something to this effect, right? Now, there's a harsh edge here because it starts from the edge. So maybe another thing that we want to do is draw some kind of something like this, some kind of mask like this. And then when we do that, we can come over to this layer, press M twice to bring up all the properties of the mask, and let's set a feather to be like 20 or 50 or I don't know, right? And what that's going to do, if we move this mask, right? Let's make sure we have the selection tool selected, and come over here, select the mask path, double click on one of these points, and if we move this up, right, the mask, then we're making sure that the bottom of this doesn't have a harsh edge. Now, if we just scrub real quick, you're gonna see this is like boom. Maybe we use it, maybe we don't. For sure, if we do use it, we're gonna change the opacity from 100 to like 40, or not 40% or something like that. And maybe together, and maybe even add a turbulent displace on this that we animate just to make this a little bit more, it's changed up a bit, right? So what if we come here and select a keyframe for the evolution right there, and then if we come over, I don't know, to this point right here, and then we set the evolution maybe just to 1 full rotation. Now if we watch this or play it back, this is what it looks like. I'm gonna change the layer so we don't see the mask selection. So is that really selling it? I don't know. Maybe we scale it up so it's a bit bigger, right? And we don't want that layer. We want this layer. Press S and then just bring this puppy up, right? Something like that. But if we've made this larger, now if we press P, maybe we reposition this to here, right? So again, we'll press spacebar to preview this. All right, so it's subtle, it's there, but if we add the other shockwave now together, right, and maybe drop the opacity a hair lower than 40%. Let's set it to 30 and press spacebar now. Boom, right? That little puff of smoke comes up from the bottom while the shockwave is going out, which, I don't know, looks cool, right? It's up to you. I didn't use it in my final render in the other one. I used it just for the cactus, right? I didn't use the shockwave smoke for the cactus, so I used one and not the other, but it's up to you whether you want to use both or not, right? The other thing that I did is I add some particles, right? So if I come over here to layer, select new, select solid, on this, we're going to call it particles. Whoops. Press enter, making sure it's the comp size, right? Then we'll come over to effects and presets and we will select particular. Now, you could use CC particle systems if you want, or CC particle world, but we're going to use particular. It's fairly quick. We can click on the designer right here. The default set of particles are here. I'm going to change my my view to be 100%. And what we want to do right here, and keep in mind, this is happening over the full course of this project. We will fix that later, but let's be in the beginning right here. Let's decide what we want them to look like. I'll click on designer. After I click on designer, I'll come over here to presets. We're not trying to get crazy, huh? All we're looking for is this burning embers. And if we click on that, we click on apply, and now what you're going to see are these burning embers. First of all, they're happening all over the place. Maybe we don't need that. We can come over here to the emitter and we can change the emitter size, right? I don't remember what it was set to in the end, but when we change this to 400 in the X, you'll notice it shrank it in its width, right? Maybe in the Y, we definitely don't need it to be that high, so maybe 500. And I don't know what numbers to set. We're just looking at our view and seeing, right? And after we make some changes, maybe we reposition it right here. Maybe we move this over a bit in the X. And you'll notice now the majority of the particles are here floating over me. We can, of course, increase the amount of particles, maybe to 40, and we don't need this to be crazy, right? The point is that just these embers are happening kind of like maybe I was on fire a bit or something, and I don't know exact numbers to put. You have to play with it, but let's set it to 50 maybe. The emitter size in Z. This doesn't have to be so high because we don't have any camera moves happening, so we're not really seeing the Z depth. It's just showing a lot of stacked particles, right? So if we drop this down, I don't know, to like 1,000, particles shouldn't stack as much, but then we could probably drop the particles a second because now they're more in our face, right? So, okay, one of the things we can do here is that we can change the opacity. If we just drop down one frame right here, we press T on our keyboard for particular, and we set the opacity to 0. Click on the stopwatch. We'll move forward a few frames, like maybe right here. Set it to 100, not 1,000. And now what happens if we play this back? There's no particles, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's some particles. We could have also animated over here in the physics section our physical time factor, but I think just using the opacity should just be fine. And if we come back out here somewhere, remember these are the keyframes for the explode me's opacity, and these keyframes right here are where the part of me being exploded will fade out. So maybe we match that transition, or maybe not even the whole. Maybe we set a keyframe for 100% here, and then at this point where I'm gone, we have the embers gone too, right? So I line this up with this keyframe, and then I drop it down to 0. I'm going to go ahead and move this back, and I'm going to create a RAM preview so you can see what's going on. As soon as it previews, we will play it for you, huh? Actually, I'm sorry. Let's just go up here to preview. We'll say cache everything before playback. All right, so we're going to stop it right there. We're just going to go ahead and play this first part, and then we'll talk about the final part, right?
What if we snap both our fingers to bring it back?
So awesome. It looks really good at this point. I think to further, of course, first of all, you can keep going, huh? The more elements you composite, and of course, there's a breaking point. Don't go too crazy. But the more elements you composite, etc., the better. I do think, for example, when the explosion happens and we're using this clean plate to show below, the reality is if there's any changes in the couch, the people are so focused on the explosion that you're not looking if a wrinkle changed in the couch when I move or disappear, right? So let's come over here to the project. I didn't do this in After Effects for the original composition, but let me just add a few of these, and that's because After Effects is not an NLE, and dropping in some of these different sounds is it's not as intuitive or easy to use as working in an NLE or in a DAW for an audio, right? So if we click on the arrow right here, we can open up the waveform, and now we can see what we're working with. We can drag this over, and really the explosion starts somewhere around here. Whoops. Let's zoom out. I'm sorry. Let's bring this over. And where do we want this to happen? I don't know. I don't remember what the sound is even. So let's go ahead and press spacebar. So we don't need that much, huh? Maybe something up to here. We're going to select this layer, press Option N bracket, and now it's just this portion. And here's the problem, right? In order to fade, we're going to have to create keyframes for our keyframes for the audio, the levels, right? And so instead of doing that, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to drop a few of them in, and you're going to get the gist of it, right? The idea is it's way easier to do in a different type of in an NLE, right? So again, we'll bring this over here. Something like that, and then I think my final sound effect was here, and again, it would sound way better if we were doing this in an alley. I just want to show you by adding different sound effects, layering them, and of course setting their levels. I'm not setting the levels here. I did inside of Final Cut when I originally did this, and I'm going to press spacebar. So something to that effect, really cool. If we adjust the levels and then in Final Cut we created a compound clip and then we could apply compression to all of it, it would sound a lot better, right? Now, one last thing, we're not going to go into full color correction on this, but if we come over here and we type in Mojo, we could just drop Mojo on top. Well, actually, I'm sorry. We are in After Effects. Let's go up to Layer. Select the particles layer. We'll go up to layer. We'll say new adjustment layer. Now the adjustment layer is on top of everything. We can drag Mojo on top of everything. Inside Mojo, I think we could change from, I think I had it, of course, set to video because this was filmed with a video camera. And I think I had it set to, was it pre-dawn? I think pre-dawn or something like that. Then I dropped the strength down. Right? And then I think I added a color correction layer to boost my mids and my highs and drop my what is it called? My shadows, right? So because this is a bit dark, and of course you could mess with it here, but I think, let's see, color correction. No, let's just bring in Colorista. Huh? Bam. And when we do that, then we can affect, for example, if we could bump up our midtones a hair, bump up our highlights a bit, not too much, drop our shadows down a bit, something like this. Anyway, something like that is what we went for our final effect. I'm going to go ahead and cash this out so you can see a preview real quick. All right, so let's play this back, and then I'll end this with some final thoughts.
What if we snap both our fingers to bring it back?
Sweet. Anyways, my final thoughts are this. If you want to make this look even better, right, in our main footage, we end this right when the explode layer happens. What I would probably do if I was doing this for a client is make the main footage extend a little bit more, or create another duplicate of that layer and just have like, I don't know, half a second of the main footage where it becomes turbulent, displaced, and squashed as the particles are exploding, right? And of course, there's the opacity transition on that layer, etc. I think it would further sell it because if we bring over here the playhead, we go from me existing to immediately dispersed, right? Or the particles, it's very quick to be full particle, right? And what I'm saying is if you had this other layer, let's drag it out of here, right? If you had this other layer come here, maybe that would look a little bit better. Now, granted, I didn't do anything to it, but if we animated the opacity from this point to this point, and then we had some effects where we turbulent displaced it, etc., I think it would look even better. Anyways, guys, I hope you liked this tutorial. You found it informative. Please like, share, subscribe, share it with your friends. It would mean the world to me. Until next time, I'm out.